Hey, what's up, everybody? BDL44 coming at you another video. All right, so this is a continuation from the other video. Uh, Essentially, what I was saying is I think that the Lakers potentially saw what they saw in the physical and did not like the idea that they were giving up their last remaining bit of assets for a player that could potentially get hurt. I think they probably would have went for it if they had plenty of other assets. In theory, depending on what they found. But just based on my theory that they were looking for an out from this trade when they realized that the reaction to them giving up what they gave up for Mark Williams probably was not the best. I pretty much think the Los Angeles Lakers said, you know what, we have a way out of this. What's in this physical is risky, and we're giving up our last remaining tradable assets, our last remaining picks till 2031. Let's get out of this deal, and we'll take what comes with it. Because at the end of the day, if Luka leaves, LeBron retires, and Mark is not 100%, we're out of picks that we can build with our team in the future, and it just is not worth the risk unless we know Mark is going to be healthy. Now, Mark at 23 years old, playing the way he's been playing for the last month, it makes you think, yo, we can buy low on this dude and trade high. But if what they found in the physical tells you that he's ultimately going to have issues down the road or turn into another Bynum or Joel or something like that, with all due respect to Mark, I don't know that we see enough upside to make that make any sense based on what it is we got going on. In the short term, yeah, you want to go that route because Mark can help you win. A player that talented is probably not going to fall in your hands, especially at the last minute trade deadline. But long term, it's his age that makes it worth it to trade that much for a player who potentially could have some injuries here and there. If they saw something in there that's going to confirm that those injuries are going to be coming, it probably ain't worth the risk for us with as few picks as we have to work with. So that's really my thing. I like Mark Williams going forward in the short term. I think he's shown me enough over the last month to understand that his upside is worth taking a chance on. But if his shelf life is only about 5 or 6 years long, and the Lakers potentially could be giving up picks from 2030, 2031, you could potentially see a situation where you don't have anything that year, and now you done gave up those things that you otherwise would have had to make sure that you have a player that you're only going to keep for a couple of years. So I think the Lakers saw an out. I think if they would have had more favorable responses from the fans in regards to the price tag, I think they may have taken the chance depending on what they found. So that's really my take on it. I think it's a little frustrating for me because we really need to center the short term. We need someone in the short term. And I hear people saying, well, why did the Lakers waste their time when you only had like 5 minutes left on a player that got hurt so many times in the past? Why would you even want to give up that much for somebody who has the history he does? The Lakers are incompetent for that. But, when you look at the circumstances, you got a chance to get a 23-year-old center who's playing like an all-star when his value's low. You overpay right now, you double that later on if you can get him to play like this for an entire season. You could trade him the following season for twice this amount. Or you don't want to trade him at all because he's so damn good. So it's like it's a buy low situation. If you tell me, for example, it's one of those situations where it's hard to find an example of this, but like you see something that you think is going to be worth 3 times the amount right now, 3 times what it is now later. So with the price tag on it right now, if you spend maybe 20% more than what the price tag is on it, yeah, the crap is expensive today for what it's worth today, but when it appreciates, that loss is not going to be even a fraction of the gains that come from when it's time for you to sell it. And that's kind of what it is. It's like a stock in a way. You might see a upstart company that projects to be a 10x'er. So you buy it in the green instead of maybe waiting for it to regress back to down 10, 20%. You just say, you know what, it's just worth it to have it, man. Let me just purchase it now at this price. Yeah, it's probably going to regress, but I got the money now. I can afford to spend an extra $5 on this thing. It's going to be worth $70 tomorrow. Let me just go ahead and get it here at this price, which is expensive for what it would otherwise be worth today, and let it appreciate in my portfolio, and then tomorrow it's going to be worth so much more. So I think that's what kind of it is for me in looking at Mark Williams. It was an overpay, but not for what you think he's going to be. But if he doesn't have that upside, then you've overpaid and you've bought yourself a lemon. So that's That's what it is. The Lakers ultimately feel they've done here if they go forward this trade. And as I said, the collective bargaining agreement is just a demon in the room, because at the end of the day, you would love to be able to amend this thing. Hey, we will take back our swap. And we still take Mark Williams, but you're going to have to let us have our swap back. And we can amend the trade. Or, we'll take back Mark Williams, but you got to take another contract from us. We got to find a way to make this sweeter for us so that we can feel good about what the risks are now, rather than what the risk would be if we gave up this amount. So there's no way to do that, given the fact this happened at the trade deadline. So that part is really hurtful for the Lakers and the Hornets. The Hornets situation, I was listening to a Hornets podcast this morning, and they were really objective, but they were essentially saying a tea leaf in the situation that I hadn't thought too much about, and that was they just acquired Nurkic from the Suns at $18 million for 2 years. That's a bad contract on a center. They got Moussa Diabaté, who's ready for an opportunity. They're ready to give him one, which is why they've cleared out all the damn centers. Brought Nurkic in, and it was going to be Moussa and Nurkic for the rest of the season and part of next year. Nurkic probably carry him until Moussa's ready to spread his wings, and it's Moussa's center position from the here on out. That's what their plan was. Now you got Mark coming back into the fold, probably not very happy, I ain't gonna say disgruntled, but ready for a big role. He's been showing that for the last month. You got Moussa in place, who thought he was getting the role right, and then you got Nurkic coming in, who's ready to win now on a bad basketball team on an $18 million contract. It's a nightmare in Charlotte. So this did not help the Charlotte Hornets, because they don't make the move for Nurkic if they don't have the move in place for Mark. So for those who are thinking that the Hornets are pleased with this in any way, they ain't got no reason to be happy about this. Now, do I think the Hornets knew something about Mark that we don't know? I mean, as I alluded to yesterday, that doesn't really make sense, because it's going to be shown in the physical, whatever it is you're hiding. So I'd have to assume they were very stupid. You know what I mean? And that doesn't seem likely to me. Now, the part that looks a little fishy is the fact that they knew this was a trade deadline, and they still went forward in whatever way they did. With this player having any issues, you have to wonder if they knew that this could be a possibility. That they did this knowing that we were going to see something in there and maybe rescind the trade and then not be able to get a center. I thought that might be some sabotage that could be possible, but they ended up hurting themselves just the same, because if you thought there was a chance this could get rescinded, you definitely don't pick up Nurkic. So that kind of blows that up for me, in the sense that they signed up for a really frustrating and awkward situation just to poke at the Lakers. If they wouldn't have picked up Nurkic, I think that would hold a lot more weight. But that they threw in an $18 million contract for Nurkic that seemingly holds no value at this point, because they're not going to be able to play it up because they have Williams and Moussa in place. I think that gives them an out from this being a conspiracy that they were in on. You know what I mean? That they wanted to just poke at the Lakers, which is, I don't know what they get out of that any damn way, to be honest with you. It's not like this is the Clippers or Celtics or something like that. It's not, or a team that we had bad business with in the past. I don't think any of that is in place. So what I think probably happened was something like what this guy said on Locked On Hornets, for which I just got to watch. The Hornets, based on their circumstances, would approve of the physicals and the things that were in the physical. Their doctors and their health department probably had an approval for those things, because the risk wasn't that bad. They drafted this kid. They're not giving up anything to get him back on the court. He's their kid. So whatever his problem is, just run him out there. Play up his value, and then trade him somewhere else. It's not, you know what I mean? The Lakers, however, the risk is different, because you're giving up quite a bit to get him. You're bringing him here in a situation where he needs to win. You're bringing him here in a situation where you have limited assets. You have Luka Doncic. You have LeBron James. The risk is far more great for the Lakers to take chances on certain health things than maybe the Hornets will be willing to. I think that's kind of what it is. Now, whether there was enough communication to let the Lakers know that was the dynamic, or that they were detached from the idea of the risk of the Lakers being willing to do that. Being willing to rescind the trade upon finding the things that they already knew about. I think that speaks to competence in the Hornets organization, potentially not necessarily being where it needs to be. Or maybe this was something that needed to happen to kind of show the field, hey, we maybe should measure our risk tolerance in regards to health circumstances and disclose that those tolerance levels are in place so that when the other team takes this risk and they find what they find, we understand on the same level what to expect in the situation. I think that's kind of what this has taught us. The whole league has learned from this to say, if that's what happened here, maybe we can say something along the lines when it's time to trade a player. Hey, we approve of his health records. Based on your risk tolerance, you may have a different level of concern than we have in the circumstance. Maybe that's a disclosure of perspective that can help teams feel more as if they're being done right in regards to a trade possibility, But maybe sometimes it takes this type of thing to give you that type of perspective so that you know how you want to handle these things going forward. This was probably the mistake that we needed to fall into for that information or that practice to be in place. So I think that's going to be the move for a lot of teams, not only in the NBA, but across all major sports in the world. When you try to make a trade, you understand that your risk tolerance for health circumstances or personality circumstances should be measured against the possibility or discussed amongst the two teams, the levels that you're willing to allow versus the levels that they're willing to allow, and to say, we're at a level 10 with our concern, but maybe you be at a level 5 with this particular player. When you go through with your testing, we expect that you may find something that's a bit more intolerable than what it was where we ultimately went for. But that affects the price. So you got to have an up and up in regards to that. And you got to have time to do that. When it's the trade deadline, people are fielding a million different calls on both sides of the coin. The Hornets are talking to a million different teams. The Lakers are talking to a million different teams. A lot of different things to consider than just two teams communicating with one another with singular focus on fixing this particular trade or making it right. So it's like, this was a little bit of why I thought it wasn't going to be a whole lot of stuff done at the last minute in regards to the trade deadline, because of so many different factors that play into why it's not going to be great to wait to the last minute to have a trade. Now, for me, I thought it would be contractual frustrations based on the collective bargaining agreement that would hold trades up. But this was another scenario that was a part of the same problem. And you wait to the last minute. Now, if there's a health issue and you let the trade deadline pass, now you find yourself not being able to amend the trade. It's just one more reason why I thought last minute trades probably would not be likely. It's another problem in that same category. And so this is a teacher. More than anything, I feel like we learned something. I think the NBA learned something. That if you got a player that has iffy health issues, it ain't going to be the same risk level for certain teams that maybe you have on your side of the fence with your team. That information is valuable in doing good business to say, hey, we're fine with what we found in this. We think this is a great situation. But maybe there will be some things that you find that might not meet your criteria for what's respected in regards to taking on this risk. So within good faith, we believe this is not much of a risk for us. We hope you find the same. And that type of communication, I think, can allow people to understand what they're getting into. So I don't know if that makes a difference in the grand scheme of things, but maybe you pivot away once someone tells you something like that, instead of allowing the trade deadline to pass without you having an opportunity at the center. So if you want to be mad at the Hornets for not having the forthcoming of that towards Rob Pelinka, I think that there may be some room for a little frustration, but not probably a whole lot, to be honest with you, given the context of what all is going on there. Another thing that came to mind for me is just, obviously what the Lakers got to do from here. And we're in such a significant disadvantage with our center position in theory, because of course we were trying to find somebody big enough and talented enough to make a guy like Jokic, to make a guy like Sengun work hard on both sides of the floor. And while we didn't think Williams could guard any of these people, what he could do is put them in significant foul trouble with his offensive talents and overwork them and make them work harder on the defensive end, maybe wear them down throughout the course of a 7-game series. Now, that dynamic's not in place. Now, what I do think we have is a very legitimate lob threat for Luka and LeBron to use, and that's Jackson Hayes. I thought he was going to be valuable either way. But, of course, we're going to have him out there more and more, and that is not what we want. It doesn't mean that he can't be helpful for our team, probably more so than he was before. But that's not what you want. So the Lakers do got to try to play the buyout market. And none of the players in the buyout market excite you as it pertains to being able to fill that role. So that's what came to mind. It's just, I don't know if there's a solution for the Lakers, man. That center position, it's just not, you're not going to be able to fill it in a way that makes you happy. I think the best player I heard that could potentially be waived is Chris Boucher. I think Chris Boucher would be a blessing for our circumstance, but I don't think that he has enough in his back pocket to really do enough of what it is we're hoping he'd do. I like him stretching the floor. I like his championship experience since he won one with the Toronto Raptors. I'm a fan of what he brings to the table, but I've seen him throughout the course of his development kind of have stretches where he doesn't do anything, and his stretches when he's really good. So he's not consistent. And neither has his role been. They've threw people in front of him, in Toronto. They've had players that they liked a little more than him come into their organization and take some of his role from him. So he's not like he's your solution. But he may be the best player I've heard in regards to that. And the circumstance in place makes it so that you can't sign the guys who made more than a certain amount based on the collective bargaining agreement, once again, being so restrictive. Now, if you're over the second apron, you can't sign a guy that made a certain amount, because in theory, since you're over the second apron, you probably have a plethora of talent. So what they don't want you to do is be able to bring in a superstar that happens to get waived. You see what I'm saying? On some weird stuff like that. A high-level starter comes in and just makes you a super team for the second half of the season. They don't want you to be able to have a certain type of quality of player. And the way they measure that out is to say you can't grab a guy who made a certain amount. So you effectively are able to have a choice from lesser talent in theory. So that's a real tough thing. Let's say something crazy happened and Clint Capella gets waived. You can't sign Clint Capella because he made more than that threshold. You got to let him go somewhere else, even though you need a center so bad, and even though he wants to be with you. So that type of thing is like, this is why I think this collective bargaining agreement is just so restrictive, that it's meant to try to provide parity and deter domination over the field. It could have good effects, but it could also have stuff like this happen that make it so that it's a real deterrent to great teams becoming great. And so maybe you say that's one and the same, but I don't think it is. You know what I mean? We just need one piece to make our thing come together, and then we can be great. We're not overloading on great talent. We just only need a piece. And we can't get that piece because of this collective bargaining agreement being as restrictive as it is. So I think sometimes you got to go through a test run. Then when the mistakes come about, then you can go back and amend them. And I think that's kind of what we're going through right here, is they're going to look at some of the stuff that happened here and fix the collective bargaining agreement. Tweak it so that some of these problems that we just experienced don't take place again for another team. So we're the guinea pigs. Lakers, we're the guinea pigs. So, yeah, I think the good things that, for me as a Laker fan, I love Dalton Knecht coming back. I would not have traded Dalton Knecht in a nutshell. I understood the concerns that we have defensively, but I also understand the high-level upside of his offensive ability and the stretching the floor, catch and shoot ability, take over the game ability. He's a game buster. If he gets hot, you beat a team that you're not supposed to beat. And so I thought we had lost some strength there, even if we brought in Mark Williams. It plugged in one hole, but it took away some of our ability to stretch the floor at an elite rate, took away some of our athleticism, I like Dalton Connect's length on the defensive end. He sucks defensively, but his length is disruptive just the same, and he works hard. His rebounding prowess can help us in certain areas. So I was ready to move on from Dalton Connect, but no more, no less than I was ready to move on from Anthony Davis and Max Christie. I thought it was worth it for what we were doing, but if I have a choice between have those players or not, I'm going to have those players every time. So that this gets rescinded gives me back another piece that I ultimately value. So I think that that's what needs to be said. I'm very happy Dalton Connect's a Laker again, and I hope that we don't trade him going forward unless something great comes along for which makes it make sense. But in a nutshell, I hope he's happy to be here. I didn't want him to be traded, and I'm glad he's here. So that's the one thing. And for me, I feel better about Cam Reddish than JJ Redick does. I personally am not deterred from playing Cam Reddish because I think at this point he becomes one of our most important on-ball defenders. But that we aren't willing to play him makes it so that he's a deterrent with his roster spot being eaten. And we already have too many of those problems. At this point, the Lakers, once again, have way too much of what they do not need and far too little of what it is that they do. If that makes any sense. Meaning we don't have the center position straightened out, but we got Markieff Morris on a contract for regular roster spot. Developing Bronny James on a roster spot. Maxi Kleber hurt for basically the season on a roster spot. You see what I'm saying? And then you need Koloko on your team with a roster spot, and you don't have one because of these problems. So it's like bringing in Cam Reddish. Me personally don't cut Cam Reddish before I cut them people. Christian Wood, another one. That's like 5 people on roster spots that can't really help the Lakers. Cam Reddish ain't the first one I'm about to cut. But since we're not using him at all, he's in that Christian Wood, Maxi Kleber conversation is to be moved on from. So this hurts bringing him back if we're not willing to use him. This hurts bringing him back because you needed that roster spot to give to Christian Koloko or to play the buyout market. Now we can't do the buyout market thing unless we cut somebody, and it may not be the easiest thing to do. You may want to cut Christian Wood, but the reality is Christian Wood might be your most talented center. Let's just be honest. Is Christian Wood better than Jackson Hayes? Of course he is. Is he better than Maxi Kleber? Of course he is. Is he better than Christian Koloko? Of course he is. Now, is he ever going to be himself again? I don't know. Is he going to be himself for the rest of the season? We ain't heard nothing on his report. So if you cut him, you understand you could potentially be cutting one of your most talented players on a team that has a plethora of stuff that ain't all that talented. So that keeps you from cutting him. You ain't going to cut Maxi Kleber for 2 reasons. One, Luka Doncic. That's his boy. He's been with Maxi Kleber his whole career. You going to cut that dude? 2, Maxi Kleber's on for another year. So it's going to be on the books whether you cut him or not. That's not something we want to do. So you're kind of stuck with Maxi. You hope he comes back for the playoff roster, but it's a good chance you don't bring him back. Okay, so we keep going down the road. You going to cut Markieff Morris? Well, you may want to cut Markieff Morris, but the problem with cutting Markieff Morris is you won a whole championship with this dude. That's one thing. 2, also one of Luka's boys. 3, he's a healthy body, and you have unhealthy bodies on roster spots. Should you not be cutting Christian Wood, who's an unhealthy body, before you cut Markieff Morris? So it becomes a situation where it's like, well, how do the Lakers manage their situation? I look over and I see now Cam Reddish, of whom we just traded away, get rescinded, come back into the situation already in the doghouse. Maybe that's the easiest path for me. He ain't got no ties to Luka the Don. Coach ain't going to use him any damn way. He's probably the guy to cut. Problem is, he's actually one of your best defenders. Based on the issues that you have, he's also a healthy body. You probably have no business cutting. Salute to Kobe minute. And so it's like, in a perfect world, this trade just simply went through. And another thing to consider about Cam Reddish is, for better or for worse, you just traded him, which means he's not He's not a complete negative in the market. If he were, he wouldn't have been able to get traded. You got stuff that you can't trade on this roster. He didn't have that problem, as you clearly just saw. So it's like you're going to get rid of something that holds some value to some degree while holding on to some stuff like Markieff Morris that probably you can't really, you know what I mean? You got to trade off only because you were willing to take him in a Luka Doncic trade. Otherwise, you probably don't get nothing from him in the market. Do you feel the same way about Cam Reddish in regards to being an attachment? Maybe you do, and that makes you feel like he's a negative asset, but you just found a trade for him. So I don't know if you can really justify cutting him. I don't even think he's 30 years old. Is he 30 yet, Cam Reddish? I don't know if you can justify cutting him when you have the defensive issues we potentially have. Trying to guard some of the players that ultimately have seen him do a decent job on defensively. Now, he may not be the strongest player for offensive circumstances, but defensively, he is one of the strongest players we have, especially with the exodus of Max Christie and Anthony Davis. And with us not having a center, we need perimeter defense even more. Since you're not bringing back Mark Williams, you don't have that 9'9" standing reach to try to be a deterrent on the defensive end. You would better have strong on-ball defenders. So for me, it's like, then I look at J.J. Redick and I say, okay, are you going to pay this dude? Are you going to play him? Because we can utilize his strengths, but if you're not going to play him, then they're not going to be realized even in a need. And I could argue we had that need and he didn't play him right before all these trades took place when Anthony Davis first went down. We didn't utilize him when we were running G League guys. So, you know, it brings us back to a situation where, as I try to do all the thinking here for the Lakers, at the end of the day, you just got to pick somebody and cut them. There's no real solution to all of this, but what you do know is you need to be able to have a roster spot to call Koloko up. You need that. You may not necessarily need to do everything else, but if that you don't have Koloko on your roster, with these circumstances, is probably the biggest problem for you because you need that rim protection. Jackson ain't going to do that. What if Jackson goes down with an injury? Is your solution to run small ball center situations without Christian Wood, without Maxi Kleber? There are going to be possessions where you have Bron running center. There's going to be possessions where you have just nothing in the paint. Is that a safe situation when you consider some of these bruising guys you're going to be going up against? Let's just say I'm willing to just say, yo, I'm going to run with Jemison. I like Jemison. He's been playing good. Okay, what happens when Jemison gets in inevitable foul trouble when he goes up against some of these talented dudes? Yes, sit down. What if he rolls an ankle? Now what? Like, it's not safe for LeBron to run the center position. It's not safe for our perimeter players to have to bang up against these big dudes. You go up against Jokic. You know what I mean? You go up against some of these guys, man. You go up against the Rockets, and they got Sengun and Adams. Like, you need a center bad. You need multiple centers. And given the fact that your centers are not very talented, the likelihood they get in foul trouble, roll an ankle, be out for a week or whatever is so high that you probably need multiple dudes. So, like for me, I'm probably cutting two people. I'm probably going to find out if Christian Wood can come back anytime soon. If not, he getting cut. I'm probably going to cut Cam Reddish just off the strength of that. And I'm probably going to cut Markieff Morris too if I can. I'm going to have all three of those roster spots because I think that that's probably what you have to do since you can't cut Maxi Kleber, you can't cut Bronny James. So it's like I'm going to need a multitude of centers. I probably feel a lot better about my roster if I cut multiple dudes and call up Koloko and Jemison on my regular roster so I have them in the playoffs, both of them. Because that's how thin my center position is. So, like, that's the kind of thing I'm thinking the Lakers should do. I ain't just cutting one dude. I'm cutting about three. Cam Reddish, we straight waving you. Markieff Morris, we waving you. What's his name? Christian Wood, if you ain't coming back, we waving you, man. Because I'm not going to sit up here and nitpick about who gets cut and who doesn't when half of these dudes can't even be used. I'm getting rid of everybody that can't be used that I can get rid of. That's how I got to be. And so that's how I handle the thinking for the Lakers. You get rid of crap that you cannot use. I don't give a damn who it is. If you can afford to get rid of it, you cut it and you play the buyout market to overall improve your team. And if somebody like Boucher becomes available, I'm the team he's going to. And if his backup becomes available, I'm calling up Koloko rather. He's going to be on the roster too. You know what I'm saying? So this is, if Shake Milton wasn't on the extra year, he getting cut too. Like in this situation, I'm shaving all type of stuff. I'm telling y'all, the stuff that's not going to be in rotation is gone if I got any choice. Because I believe in addition by subtraction and playing the buyout market for better talent. I believe in that. And I know a lot of people have been said, it's been said on the internet, oh, you buy guys on the buyout market. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be players that really help your team. You know, how many guys on the buyout market have actually worked? It's like that's not something I can be concerned with when I have so much dead weight on my roster. I just got to get a bunch of this stuff out of here and bring in the best possible talent. I can't worry about that. That can't be something I'm worried about. You see what I'm saying? I can't let that be a reason for me to keep stuff that can't be used and not play the buyout market. So I think the Lakers have a nice little 9-man rotation. It would have been great to have Mark Williams in place, but the truth is, it's a dang good chance Mark Williams wouldn't have even been used anyway. There's a dang good chance that Mark Williams probably got hurt. If this, for which is being revealed to us, is as serious as it is, you might not have had him any damn way. So that part, you have to just let be what you hang your hat on. That what they have in that thing is likely going to make it so that you feel great about moving on from Mark Williams and getting back what it is you gave up for him. You don't really want to wait until the injury comes around. When you wait until the injury comes around, then you can't get back what it is you gave up for him. At least in this situation, you give back what you gave up for him. And so, like, that's what I have to tell myself for the rest of the season. He would have went down anyway. He would have went down anyway. And we would have been out of him and what we gave up. And this would have still been the problem. So that's what you tell yourself when you move forward, man. I think most people agree that we overpaid for Mark Williams. I never disagreed with that. After listening to people say it, I never disagreed with that. I'm happy to have my stuff back. But now we got to figure out how we're going to handle our center position, how we're going to get some dead weight off our team, create roster spots for buyout candidates and for Koloko, of whom I think is essential to what we're going to do going forward. And I think that should be the priority. Not necessarily bringing in in-house dudes. Bringing in buyout candidates, but making sure Koloko is on that regular roster available for the playoffs. That's one of the most important things the Lakers can do right now. Because I got Jackson Hayes, but I got to choose which one of the two I'm going to use in the playoff roster. Is it going to be Koloko or is it going to be Jemison? And for me, it's probably Koloko. Although I've been very pleased with Jemison, I'm starting to wonder if he's a hothead. And if he ain't going to create problems that we got to get him out of. That's what I'm wondering about with Jemison. Is he a hothead, dude? He's already a big, strong man nobody wants to fight, but is he also a hothead? Because if he's a hothead, then he's going to cost us in the playoffs when he picks up 2 technicals and we're up by 3. You see what I'm saying? That type of I can't let it happen. So if he's not going to be able to keep his cool, then he's a big problem. So that's why I don't want a guy like Isaiah Stewart. I'm cool, man. You got anger issues and you big and strong, bro, you're going to be a problem. You're a problem to manage. You know, and nobody going to want to deal with you. So that's why I tell people like that, you know, work on your anger, man. Work whatever you got to do. If you got anger issues and you big and strong, you're a danger to yourself just as you were a danger to anybody else. Because people going to handle you in ways that they would handle a bear. You feel me? Like, they not going to want to punch you. You know, that's what I tell people all the time. I'm like, yo, some of y'all are so strong and big. Y'all got to understand that people ain't going to want to punch with you, fam. Like, they going to want to, you know, go a different route. And so, same goes in regards to business. If they don't think that they can manage you and you're somebody that's going to be imposing and big, bro, they ain't going to want to deal with you. They ain't going to let you be around. So, I like Jemison. I like that energy, but it has to be harnessed properly. It has to be harnessed properly. You got to have your head on straight. You got to have your bigger picture in mind at all times. This is my career. And that's it. So, yeah, man, I don't know. I like Jemison. I hope he's able to make it. I think he's played some good ball for us. I know I understand he's limited, but he seems to be a good player for what we need him to be. But come playoff time, I can't have him getting into it with Jokic. I can't have him, you know, punching on somebody's. No, I can't have that, bro. So that's something that reared its ugly head yesterday and made me wonder if that's going to be a thing. But, yeah, man, I mean, you know, I'm happy to have Connect back. I am. I don't know that he fits on my team right now. or short term or long term. Short term, if he continues to struggle, no. But he started shaking off some of those struggles. Hopefully his confidence isn't shot by being traded. It's reasonable if it is. But we need him to be a helpful piece for the rest of the season. And we need him to be bought in. I don't think he wanted to be traded. It's not like I think he's upset that this trade got rescinded. There's nothing worse than being a Laker and then having to be traded to the Charlotte Hornets. Nothing in the world is worse than that. So for him, it's like, oh, you rescinded that? Praise God. Get me back on the team. I don't care. I'll go back in the locker room. You guys traded me? Yeah, that sucks, but I'm in LA again, so that's a better path than having to sit over in Charlotte and lose under their regime. Oh, and keep in mind that Mitch Kupchak no longer is the GM in Charlotte. I have to amend that. I said that he was. I hadn't updated my understanding. They have some other dude named Doug Peterson or something like that. I don't know his name, really. I don't know. But, yeah, that is – Mitch Kupchak's not there. If Mitch Kupchak was there, I don't know that any of this would be happening, to be honest with you. So, yeah, I just wanted to amend that. But, look, man, Lakers got to figure out what they're going to do with their big man position. I don't feel as good about us going to no championship as I did when we thought Mark Williams was coming in. This is pretty tough on us, especially since the last time we had something like this happen, it was the Hornets as well. Albeit the New Orleans Hornets have probably turned into the Pelicans, if I'm not mistaken, but still, it's Hornets. You just hate that for yourself. Talking about the CP3 trade. You hate that you have to go through this. Having trades rescinded and stuff like that, and the Hornets being a part of it is the problem. And we've been through before, and it hurt us bad then, and it hurts us bad now, man. So I'm frustrated with that. I think the Los Angeles Lakers are a team that could still compete in playoffs. I definitely like how we've been playing without all these great players. So if we get Bron and Luka on the same page, I do think we're still going to be extremely tough out. But I don't think we're unbeatable by any stretch of the imagination, especially with teams like Denver and Houston having centers and, you know, Chet Holmgren and Hartenstein. I just don't know that we actually compete with those teams at this point. Regular season, one-game situation, sure. Every night? Nah, hell nah. Those teams are going to eat. They're going to eat big against our bigs, and that's just what you were hoping that you didn't have to deal with after making the Mark Williams trade. So this took the wind out of our sails. We're disappointed. We're happy that we got back our package of stuff. I feel good. I feel better about my future if Mark Williams is going to have issues health-wise. I feel a lot better with what we have now than we did after we made that trade if what they found was terrible. Him being 23, if it equates to him being 30 because he's going to retire in 5 years, that's not what I want. You see what I'm saying? So it's like, I think we can still fix our problems in the offseason. I don't think we were the favorite to win the championship with Mark Williams this season. So all things considered, we were going to get ousted any damn way. And you got to tell yourself that too. So, yeah, man, we got our pick swap back. I don't think that pick swap would have been realized, though, because it wasn't a good chance that the Charlotte Hornets were ever going to be better than us. Just given off the fact that we are the Lakers and we can attract stars, and they're the Charlotte Hornets and they can't seem to keep anybody. So the likelihood that they were going to be better than us at a given year to receive the swap probably wasn't that high. But you never know, man. Teams start doing things the right way, they can turn themselves around. Especially if they're able to get first-round picks and swaps for hurt centers. If they could pull off a bunch of that type of stuff, yeah, maybe they can set themselves up to look good the second half of the decade. But, you know, I still don't think that swap probably would have been realized any damn way. But that first overall pick is very valuable to us because we don't have a lot of picks to work with. It's not as valuable without Luka. And it's likely going to be traded before we make the decision, or before Luka makes his decision to resign with us. It's likely going to be moved. So we'll probably never realize it being as valuable as to keep it till it gets drafted. I don't see that at all. We're definitely going to move that thing. So, yeah, that's just the thoughts that come to my mind, man. That really made me sad. Like, damn, we really thought we had a chance to win a championship this year. And this really does put a bad taste in Luka's mouth as it pertains to what it is that we're capable of doing and what it is that we can do this season and how his season's about to end and how he has to think about everything that had just happened. There are going to be other teams that are knocking on the door trying to poach him. And we were the team that pulled him away from Dallas. I just don't know how you feel about that. He might think we opt too. So it's like, I want Luka to stay. I thought Mark Williams could do wonders for making that worth it to him. And I just don't know where his head's going to be from here on out. How much of this takes the winds out of his sails for the rest of the season? How much of this puts pressure on him to play more physical, for which he can get hurt again? Mark is supposed to make some of them easy buckets, take some of that pressure off of him and Bron. So it's a million things that go through my mind when I think about how this trade just didn't go through. And I personally valued Mark Williams more than I value the picks and the Connect and Cam Reddish right now. But if he ain't going to be healthy, then obviously not. BDL 44. I thank y'all for watching. I'm out.